Okay guys, so this is going to be my video for the week. It's death, and I personally haven't experienced a personal death for me, but I have my friend Lydia here, and she has an amazing testimony to share, and so I just want you guys to take this to heart and just consider everything that she's going to talk about, because it's really good. It's really good, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy she's able to talk about this. It's really God's grace that she can be here with me.
A wonderful family. I have a mom who has recently gone back to the Lord. She's amazing.
Praise Jesus.
And I had a stepdad who was adopted me, so he's my real dad. And he wasn't saved when they first got married, and he recently actually got saved about 4 years ago. So he's living for God, which is an amazing thing. And together, my mom and my dad had 2 little boys, Tyler and Nicholas. And Tyler and Nicholas were 2 of the world's best things in my life. Tyler was smart and inquisitive. He was very intelligent, and he just really smart. And he always wanted to figure things out. He would tear things apart just to figure things out, just to figure out how things worked. He would always do that. And he was about 10 years old, going to be 11. And then Nicholas was rough and tumbly, and he was a protector. If you were in a fight, or if somebody was tickling somebody and they were screaming involved, Nicholas would fight for the other person. That's just who he was, and what he was growing into be. It was very protective. But about 2 summers ago, I was in a place in Illinois, about 3 hours away from home, and I was doing some mission work. I was getting ready to teach. And this is kind of a God thing. I was getting ready to teach, and I got a phone call from a friend back home. And so I answered it because I was like, it was like minutes before I was getting ready to teach. So I answered it. I mean, it was like a little bit. So I answered it. I was like, hey, how you doing? And my friend was like, hey, where are you? I'm like, I'm in this place. I'm in Centralia, or I can't remember what the town was. That's awful. But I'm here, and I'm getting ready to teach. She's like, oh, that's super exciting. Which this is kind of foreshadowing to what happened later. And then after I taught, 6 kids came back to receive Christ, because we teach the gospel, and we share the gospel, and we have an invitation afterward, and then the kids come back. Well, there's like 6 kids that came back, and I asked them, this is in the inner city, this is an inner city place, and I asked them, how many of you guys need Bibles? Everybody needed a Bible. So I'm like, okay. So I grabbed the keys from the person that I'm working with to go outside and to grab the Bibles. And I see the area director heading in, and she is bawling, she is crying. She's like, Lydia, you have to go home. And I'm like, why? Why do I need to go home? What's wrong? She's like, there's been an accident. Which, at this point, that's what they were calling, my friends, that's what they were calling me about, was to see where I was, if I was in the hospital with my brothers.
But they didn't tell you.
But they didn't tell me, and that's a God thing, because had they have told me what was happening, I wouldn't have been able to teach.
I would have after you taught.
Exactly. And that's a God thing. I mean, God, they didn't know that, but God knew that.
Yeah.
And God gave them the wisdom to know when to tell me and when not to tell me. But I hadn't known what was going on. So all I knew was that there was an accident. So I asked her, I said, who's been in an accident? Are they okay? What's wrong? And she wouldn't tell me. She said, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I'm like, all right. So I called my mom. Oh, I called my mom first. My mom doesn't answer. So at first I'm thinking, my mom's hurt. My mom's been in this accident. There's something wrong with her. And then I call my grandpa. My grandpa doesn't answer. Somebody else answers, and I didn't know who it was. Turns out it was my dad. I never heard him being serious before, so it was kind of a new thing for me. But so I'm thinking, my mom, my grandpa, both of those things I was prepared for. Because both of those things, you know, it's something that you hear about often. You're just ready for those things. But I wasn't ready for what he was going to tell me, because he told me, he said, it's your brothers. And I said, are they okay? Are they hurt? What is something broken? And he said, Lydia, you're going to have to calm down. And I was like, no, you need to tell me. You need to tell me what's happened, what's wrong. And he said they're with Jesus now. They got our neighbor, and when they said our neighbors drive really fast down our road. So the first emotion that I had was anger. I mean, anger. And he said, no, it wasn't that. And so what had happened was they were sliding down the hill. Our road goes into like this little valley, and our house was on a hill. And they were sliding down the hill on a sled, as only boys will do in the middle of summer.
Mm-hmm.
And the weeds were too high, and the car couldn't see them, and instantly hit them at the exact moment that they needed to, that they passed away. And I remember when he told me that, all he had said was that they were passed away. He didn't tell me all of those things. All of those things, nobody told me those things until I was home. But I remember the first thing that I did was I just fell. I just collapsed and screamed. I mean, because that's your first reaction. Because it's shock when something that was never supposed to happen, because that's not something that's supposed to happen. You're not supposed to lose an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. That's not supposed to happen, but it did. But luckily, God knew where I was going to be at, and I was at a church, and a group of Christians that didn't even know me surrounded me and covered me with prayer. My area director drove me. My mom and dad were completely baffled. Just such a struggle. So I didn't even go to bed that night. I slept on the couch with my parents. We just slept on the couch together, and it was such a sad time. And the next morning, I went upstairs and I changed my clothes, and when I got back down, my grandpa was there, my cousin was there. My mom was frantically working on this PowerPoint for the boys, and that's the only thing she could focus on. While my mom is doing all this, I remember there was a knock at the door. That would have been a good time to do that. There was a knock at the door. And my mom and dad, I don't even remember where my dad was at this point. But and my mom, and I remember a knock on the door, and I opened it. It was my neighbor, and his daughter, the girl who had hit the boys.
Oh.
So I opened the door, and I remember her looking at me, and the only thing she could say to me was, I'm sorry. And she said it over and over again, crying and bawling, and the only thing, and no matter how much pain and how much anger I had at the very beginning of all of these things, it was completely gone when I saw her remorse, and when I saw her face and how much this was tearing her up. And I just held her, and I just hugged her. I mean, this woman is 20-something years old, and I held her, and I held her, and I just said, it's okay, we love you, it's okay, we love you, it's okay. And so my mom came out, and she did the same thing, and all of our family, we covered their family with love, because that is the only thing that we could have done. And that was literally the only thing that we could feel towards them. There was no anger, there was no hate, there was no malice, there was nothing but love and shared pain. I mean, this changed this girl's life. I mean, she's always gonna see that. She's always gonna feel that. Just as we will. So, she said she was sorry, and she asked if she could go to this prayer vigil for my family, and she said all the people around that were friends with us and had come to that vigil, they went around her and they prayed for her. Now, she wasn't a Christian at this point. She was somebody who would party. She was having a really rough life. She didn't really have that background. So the next time around, we had the funeral, we had the visitation. The visitation, I think we were there for 5 hours. And I mean, it was always people. There was no calm. It was constant people. It was a blessing in disguise. Just the outpouring of love that our family had for given to us. And I think the hardest thing about when you lose somebody is the realization that you will never see them again. The hardest part for me, I'm a pretty strong person. The truth of it is, I didn't have to be that, but I chose to be, and that's what God equipped me to be. The hardest thing was walking in and seeing them in the casket. The finality of that is the hardest thing. It's the finality of you're never going to see them again. You're never going to hold them again. You're never going to love them again. Not in the same way that you did for me. And that's really difficult. That's a real struggle. But it's something that you eventually, with God's grace and with God's help, you realize that you will see them again. And they aren't going to be like that. But I mean, God did this for a reason. It was the exact minute that it had to be for it to work out exactly how God wanted it to do. So how can I look at that? And people ask me all the time, how can you see that and think God had a plan in that? I mean, what if Satan did that? What if Satan's not all-knowing? Satan isn't that powerful. Satan isn't as powerful as God is. And only God knew exactly what was going to have to happen so that this would work out the way that it did. There were people praying and knowing about our story all across the globe. Everywhere. I mean, it was everywhere. And, when I was in the visitation, I was sitting in, I don't even know who it was. I think it was some of my aunt's friends, and she's not a Christian. She came up and she hugged me and she said, this lady, she's probably 30 or 40, she hugged me and she said, I don't understand. I can't understand. How can you be so strong? How can you deal with that and be totally okay? And I said, it's because I know that God has a plan. Well, how can you know that? I know that my brothers are in heaven. I know that they are being obnoxious. I know that they are asking God ridiculous questions. But I know those things because I know that my brothers are saved by God's grace and I know where they are right now. I know that for sure. And I got to tell her that. And I don't know if it clicked. It may have, it may not have. I don't know. But God allowed my brother's life, no matter how short and no matter how painful the end was, allowed that to start the ball rolling for so many salvations and for to change my life and to change other people's lives so much that even though you look at them and you think, they were young, it didn't really make a difference. It did. It did, not just for the tragedy, but for the life that they had and the love that my family showed has changed so many people's lives. The girl who hit them, she's saved. She is a child of God. She would never have fallen. She wouldn't have fallen so far down that she had to get God to get back up. That would have never happened without this, And my cousin received Christ, and 3 or 4 kids in our church received Christ because they were friends with Tyler and Nicholas, and one day they're there and the next day they're gone. That's somewhat of a blessing death can be. Death can be a blessing in just changing lives for the good. And I think sometimes we get so narrow-minded, and you can, when something tragic happens, you get so narrow-minded that you only think about the bad. You only think about what it could have been, what happened, and all these different things. But if you look at it, you take your blinders off of the narrow part that you're at right now, and you widen your horizons, you can see the glory of God so much more if you do that. And the hardest thing is doing that while you're still in that situation. And the best thing that I can advise is just to pray to God, God, open my eyes. God, I am going through a really hard time. I don't know what to do. My whole life has been changed. My whole life, my whole world has been torn apart and torn into pieces, and I don't know what to do. And I want to see your grace, and I want to see your glory in this. And once you pray that prayer, God will open your eyes, and you'll see so much more beauty into what's going on. But God is using it, and God is giving